Hey guys, welcome back. This is a story about what if Naruto befriended Kurama early. After a life-changing event, Naruto meets Kurama early and they become partners and even good friends with a better outlook on life. He meets many who want to join him and help achieve their dreams and goals together. Among those friends are many beautiful women. Realize just how important he is to them. Before we start, thank you for all of the support. It really means a lot to me. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and leave a like. You can suggest a Naruto fanfiction with a link in the comments if you want me to read it, and check the description for the creator of this great fanfic and support them for making this fanfic. So let's start. Warning. This story will contain mature language, sexual themes, and graphic depictions of violence and gore. Disclaimer. I do not own Naruto or any of its characters. Chapter 11. Short-lived secrecy. Early morning in Naruto's apartment. Okay, self-checklist time. Naruto thought while staring at the crimson fur covering his clawed right hand and forearm as he heard another knocking at the front door. Do you really have to do that right now? Kurama shouted nervously from inside the seal. She wasn't looking forward to seeing anyone's reaction to her container displaying her characteristics physically on his body. She could only hope whoever was at the door was a friendly. I absorbed the fox's chakra from Anko-san's crappy seal last night. Naruto ignored Kurama's rant as he kept going down his list. Don't talk as if I'm not here, damn it. I pass out in pain as soon as we got home. Kurama laughed uproariously. You screamed like a pussy too. Then again, not everyone can say they stayed conscious feeling like their entire body was on fire from inside out for at least 10 minutes before finally passing out. Naruto developed an annoyed tick on his left temple as he heard the fox's insult before continuing, flexing his fur-covered right hand in front of his face. I wake up to see my right hand covered in fur, soft and luscious. Kurama cut in with no small amount of pride in her voice. Sigh. Soft and luscious fur similar in color to the demon fox sealed inside me. I said don't talk as if I'm not here. And now I'm hearing knocking at the front door and said demon fox is bitching at me like there's no tomorrow. Oi, you bastard. Naruto ignored more of the demon fox's cursing as he got himself up despite still feeling some soreness from last night's episode. He checked all over his body for any other sign, but it looked like only his right hand was transformed. He then heard another knocking at the front door, this time impatient and harsher. Okay, let's see if we can't get rid of this. He quietly murmured as he stared at his right hand and began to concentrate on diverting most of his chakra away from his right arm, only leaving the bare minimum. The effect was almost instantaneous when the fur and the claws retracted immediately, turning his right hand back to normal. He then allowed the usual amount of his own chakra to flow back in, and nothing happened this time. He assumed it was probably just some leftover demonic chakra from last night's episode that caused this before he expelled it. So he really did transform using the demon fox's chakra. Huh. That actually worked out okay. Kurama snapped out of her rant long enough to say this, sounding almost disappointed. What were you expecting to happen? Some sort of a ridiculous situation in which you desperately try to hide your hand using whatever means possible as you had to let whoever's at the front door in, and it just gets more silly as time goes on. Naruto raised an eyebrow with an amused smirk. Is my life really like a crappy sitcom to you? Yes. Yes it is. Chuckling, he turned to the door and began walking toward it slowly, wondering who would visit him. He assumed it to be the Hokage coming to check on him after hearing the report from the boar-masked Anbu about the assault on Anko and her subsequent rescue by him. However, instinct screamed at him to save himself as he was about to reach for the doorknob, and he was already bending back into a backflip before he even realized it. Only that saved him from a possibly fatal wound when the blade of a ninjutsu suddenly pierced through the door toward where the boy's throat would have been if he had been unaware. Naruto did 2 backward somersaults down the entrance hallway before landing and blurring through hand seals almost by reflex. Kaden, Hausenka mystical phoenix fire. He whispered before inhaling quickly to spit out 3 small fire projectiles toward the door. It shattered into many fiery pieces, and they blew out onto the apartment building's overgrown front yard below, allowing the cool morning air to blow into the apartment. It was apparent to Naruto that no one was behind the door when he blew it away. Looking around warily, he jumped in fright when the large living room window shattered with a thunderous crash as an unknown person leapt through it toward the shocked boy. It was thanks to years of practicing Raging Fox that the boy acrobatically jumped to the side at the last minute, horizontally twirling his body a few times, as he avoided a vicious overhead sword strike before landing on his feet. In the next instant, he jumped forward low to the floor into the living room from the hallway to avoid a horizontal slash aimed at where his neck was an instant before. He then went into a roll on the floor before springing out of it and latching to the opposite wall from the attacker with chakra. Taking advantage of the momentary lapse, he finally got a good look at the intruder. Nako-san. Naruto exclaimed in shock as he looked over the curvaceous figure of the purple-haired female fully decked out in her Anbu outfit, complete with the cat mask. She slowly turned toward her opponent after she had missed her initial attacks, and Naruto could feel anger and murderous intent rolling off her. What's going on? What did I do to piss you off? He tried to ask, before he had to jump up to the ceiling to avoid an almost instantaneous stab at his previous position. He then had to scramble across the ceiling with chakra like a spider as he dodged a flurry of sword slashes, which cut the ceiling into ribbons, from the cat-masked woman. He made his way back into the hallway before dropping to the floor and turning around to see the woman stand still in the middle of the living room, her sword slightly trembling as she shook with rage. The cut pieces of the ceiling hung around her, as if they were morbid streamers celebrating his inevitable murder. You're saying you don't know what you did? The woman growled in anger as she brandished her sword threateningly toward the blonde. I'm pretty sure I'd know if I did something to piss someone off this much. He deadpanned. His nonchalant response only served to incense the woman further as she dashed toward him, rearing her sword back to slash at him. Thanking the fact he didn't undress from last night and still had his shinobi gear on him, Naruto quickly tossed something from his waist pouch toward the attacking woman. Screeching to a halt, Nako only had time to register that this slow-moving projectile was a small smoke bomb before it exploded on impact with her mask. Her mask protected her eyes and nose from any kind of irritation, but the small smoke cloud was enough to blind her for a moment. Naruto didn't waste this chance as he vanished down the hallway toward the back of his apartment. The female Anbu got over her momentary blindness to see her target had disappeared. Cursing inwardly, she began to slowly stalk her way down the hallway as if she was a predator looking for her prey, her sword out in front of her and ready to cut anything. A disembodied voice echoed all around her in the hallway, making her slightly flinch. I just figured out something. When I took Anko-san to her apartment last night, I thought there was a familiar scent there, but I couldn't place it until now. It was the same sword cleaning kit scent I'm smelling on you. There were also pictures of you with Anko-san at her place. It's easy to tell with your hair color. You're close to her, aren't you? The Anbu growled at being identified so easily but didn't say anything as she continued her painfully slow trek down the hallway, noting 2 doors, one each on the sides, aside from the bedroom door at the end. She assumed one of them to be for the bathroom. She didn't know where the second door led to. I'll take that as a yes. Now then, I believe your anger with me has something to do with what happened last night. Otherwise, there's no explanation for you coming here trying to shove your sword up my ass. The only thing is, I don't remember doing anything to piss off anyone. Before we resume battling, I would like an explanation on that oh so important issue. Enraged at Naruto's continued ignorance, the female Anbu abruptly ripped her mask off to reveal a beautiful feminine face framed by long purple bangs that went down to her impressively large chest. Her exotic slatted chocolate brown eyes would have been warm and attractive if they weren't burning with anger at the moment. Her small and slightly full lips were enhanced with some bright red lipstick, a stark contrast against her pale and flawless skin. Naruto had to fight to keep his breath from hitching, lest that would have given his hiding spot away. This woman was right up there with the most beautiful he had seen so far in his short life. The unmasked Anbu began speaking calmly as she hung her mask at her waist, but kept her sword up cautiously. Now that you've seen pictures of me at my apartment, there's no point hiding my face from you. My name's Azuki Yugao and Anko-chan's been my surrogate little sister for 6 years since she came back to the village from. Naruto noticed this pause. Somewhere. Because of some issues, her life's been very difficult and I swore to myself I'd protect my little sister from any harm. That includes you after you took advantage of her last night. A long silence followed Yugao's accusation. Huh, was Naruto's intelligent reply, which made the woman growl. Don't play dumb with me. I come back from my night shift patrolling around the village only to have Boar tell me that Anko-chan got assaulted and that you were taking her home. I left right away for home, and when I arrived, what did I find? Yugao almost shouted at the end. Naruto was still waiting in confused silence for the punchline. The irritated woman pressed on. Are you really going to be this evasive? She was shirtless. Her flak vest was on the floor. She was knocked out and maybe you couldn't contain your curiosity and had a look, but it's still unforgivable. What? I did nothing to her. I did do something when we got to your apartment, but that wasn't whatever you were thinking. Please believe me. Naruto stammered, trying to defuse the situation now that he knew what was going on. Meanwhile, Kurama was cackling in his head. Forget what I said earlier. This is a much better sitcom moment to watch. A massive misunderstanding going on between an enraged and irrational woman and a boy who couldn't explain his way out of a wet paper bag. Oh really? Her pink silk bra was already discarded when I got there. Are you really sure you didn't see anything? Yugao demanded. No way. Besides, it wasn't pink silk, it was purple lace. AHA. Shit. Naruto cursed as he realized he was tricked. You can be such a gullible fool sometimes. Kurama chuckled in his head to his annoyance. I'm going to find you and stab you repeatedly, then haul you in front of Anko-chan when she wakes up so she can finish you off to preserve her honor. Take it like a man. Yugao resumed her slow stalking toward the bedroom door, stepping past the first door on the left. What's with you Anbu and stabbing with pointy things? And I'm still 12 years old. You'll be a man before long and that's good enough for me. Come out. Yugao challenged as she gingerly made her slow trek toward the bedroom, her sword still held with tension. She was convinced that her prey was hiding in the bedroom. Naruto let out a dejected sigh. Fine, you leave me no choice. I'll just beat you up a little so I can have you actually listen to my side of the story. His resigned voice echoed around Yugao, which made her pause momentarily. There was no false bravado in his voice. He was confident he could get one over her, an elite Anbu swordswoman. That made her slightly nervous for the first time since she entered the apartment. Still, she chuckled. You forget you're just a child up against an elite sword expert. Even with your training, you won't beat me. She shivered as she practically felt Naruto's lips form into a knowing smirk. That would be true seeing I haven't found some sabers yet and the practice swords I have won't do anything against you. However, you made a mistake when you came in here. There was a pause for a few seconds to let the words sink in, before he finished. You stepped into my turf. On that cue, as Yugao made one more step toward the bedroom passing the second door on the right, a certain spot on the right wall of the hallway began to shimmer just behind the woman to reveal the blonde coming out of the transparent escape jutsu he learned from his godfather. Another Naruto shimmered out of invisibility higher up on the opposite wall, sticking to it with chakra on his back. Finally, the last Naruto appeared sticking to the ceiling like a spider just above Yugao's head. The Naruto on the ceiling flashed a smirk before he silently dropped, preparing to subdue Yugao. Unfortunately for him, the Anbu felt the intention and instinctively stabbed upward with her sword, skewering him in the air easily. The boy's shocked look made her flinch and she briefly wondered if she might have taken this too far, only to become alarmed when he smirked evilly before dispelling into smoke, revealing this one to be a shadow clone. Before Yugao could react, she was struck hard on her right shoulder from behind when the second Naruto jumped off the wall toward her with a flying kick. It then dispelled on impact. It didn't knock her over, but it made her lose her grip on her sword momentarily. That was all the real Naruto, standing in front of the bedroom door cloaked, needed as he dropped the jutsu and dashed forward to jump and kick up at the hilt of the woman's sword before she could recover. It knocked the sword up out of her grip to stick deep into the ceiling above, depriving the female Anbu of her primary weapon. Naruto, still in the air from the jump, spun around once before thrusting out his leg to land squarely on the woman's chest, making her stumble backward down the hall. Yugao grunted in frustration at her own arrogance putting her at a disadvantage early, but she wouldn't give up. She quickly recovered and put her hands up in a defensive pose, prepared for whatever Naruto was going to do next as he landed gracefully and strode toward her with a confident look on his face. Unfortunately, she was too focused on the real Naruto to notice the third clone on the floor behind her as it kicked hard at the back of her right knee. It automatically made her fall to the floor on that knee before she even knew what was happening. Before Yugao could recover, she felt a hand wrap around her delicate neck as Naruto stepped past her. The boy grunted with exertion as he pulled her backward to fling her. Before she knew it, she was flying toward the first hallway door she passed, now held open by a clone. The clone grinned and waved daintily at her as she flew through the door and tumbled down some stairs, before it closed the door. Groaning in pain from the fall and coughing a little at the pressure the boy momentarily exerted on her throat for the throw, it took her a moment to realize that she could not see anything as she pushed herself up off the cold and damp floor. It was pitch black all around her. Feeling some growing discontent, she suppressed it as she focused on her training. She strained to listen for any slightest noise as she waited for her vision to try to adjust to the darkness. Before long, multiple beams of bright lights flooded the room, making her put a hand up to shield her eyes as she winced. A booming voice echoed throughout the brightly lit room, making Yugao shift into a stiff defensive posture. Welcome to the bottom floor. Since all the tenants and even the landlord abandoned this building due to my unique status, I have free run of this entire building. I converted this entire floor into my personal trap room for anyone stupid enough to try to invade my home. That would include you. Yugao narrowed her eyes at the insult, but wouldn't move or respond. Since you're the 10th guest to experience this unique attraction, you've won a prize, which is, Yugao could practically feel Naruto's sinister grin as if it was the Kyuubi's. An extra 15 minutes added to the usual 30 minutes tour of the Uzumaki House of Horrors. The lights then shut off just after the boy's announcement and the room fell into complete darkness once again. A moment later, a sound that no one would expect to hear from Yugao came out when a shrill and girly scream, first of many, echoed throughout the dark room. 45 minutes later the third Hokage was rather concerned. Last night, when he heard the report from Bor-san that Naruto decimated 3 Chunin by himself to rescue Mitarashi Anko from a terrible experience, he was proud. That was before he realized the boy rescued her in an area he rarely passed by. There was absolutely no reason for him to just happen to come upon the scene, so the Hokage deduced something lured him there last night. As he pondered over what that was, he decided to stop by and visit the boy the next day. Now, as the third Hokage walked up to the boy's apartment building, he noticed something peculiar. The overgrown front yard was smoldering with small fires spreading everywhere. Not too alarmed by that, he snapped his fingers for an Anbu to appear at his side. No command was needed as the Anbu guard simply flashed through hand seals to call up a low-powered water jutsu to put out the fire. Continuing into the building and upstairs, Hiruzen became a little more cautious when he noticed the window to the living room was shattered and the front door was blasted outward, leaving only 2 small burning pieces of wood around the hinges. He quickly stepped into the apartment to find the place a total mess, as if a battle happened. Before the old man could become genuinely worried for the boy's well-being, one of the hallway's doors slammed open, attracting the attention of the Hokage and the 2 Anbu guards behind him. They heard grunts of exertion as if something heavy was being carried, then they heard a voice. Every Anbu can assassinate a flea from 100 meters. They take on S-ranked missions without flinching. All of you strike fear into the hearts of hardened enemy shinobi everywhere. Yet, why the hell do you guys have a problem with taking a 12-year-old like me down? I'd actually be disappointed in your performance if it didn't mean bad news for me if I lost. The Hokage smirked as he felt the 2 Anbu behind him flinch with slight indignation at what was said. The blonde finally came into view carrying a tied-up female adult over his shoulder. He noticed the Hokage standing at the front doorway and sighed. Sorry, Hokage Gigi. This idiot came into my home wanting to introduce her sword to my stomach and I had to defend myself. The boy grumbled as he nonchalantly tossed the body with a thud at the feet of the Hokage. The third took a moment to see who it was, and was surprised to see it was Yugao, one of the top Anbu operatives under his command. She was covered from head to toe in a mixture of bright-colored paints and various insects which made her squirm against the rope binding her tightly. He also noticed an overpowering smell of used ramen broth wafting from her entire body. He also realized why she couldn't talk just yet as she was gagged with some cloth in her mouth. She stared up at the Hokage with shame in her eyes and an embarrassed blush on her cheeks while the two Anbu behind the Hokage shook as they tried with all their might to hold in their laughter. He sighed and smiled gently. Uzumaki House of Horrors, he simply asked. The woman trembled at the memory of what was done to her just a moment ago before she slowly nodded, her shame growing. No need to be so ashamed. You're not alone. He got me in there once when I tried to punish him one time by forbidding ramen a couple years ago. Said boy harumphed. No one messes with my already limited ramen intake. Naruto declared as he crossed his arms defiantly. The Hokage chuckled for a moment before his expression became deadly serious, making Naruto step backward involuntarily under the steely gaze he was getting. Now, I would like an explanation for this, and also for why you happened to come upon Anko-chan while she was being assaulted. Your guard, Bor-san, said you were kilometers away and you had no reason to be in the area where the incident happened. That was before you suddenly ran at full speed in a straight line toward Anko-chan as if you knew something was happening to her. This made Yugao's eyes widen and somewhat grateful to the boy because any other way would have ended up with her beloved surrogate sister broken beyond recovery. Naruto sighed before he bent down to untie the purple-haired woman, surprising her. Now that I've calmed Yugao-san down, I'd like to let her get cleaned up, then I'll tell you everything when she's done since she needs to hear this as well. I don't feel like repeating myself. In the meantime, would any of you like some tea? Naruto nonchalantly asked with a friendly smile as the chilly morning wind from the shattered living room window and the non-existent front door whipped throughout the apartment, sending debris fluttering around everywhere. The Hokage and the two Anbu escorts sweet-dropped as they glanced down at Yugao with deadpan expressions, making her curl up in embarrassment. 15 minutes later. Cold, a feminine voice shrieked from the bathroom as Naruto set a cup of tea down in front of the Hokage sitting at the flimsy kitchen table. The blonde snickered. Sorry Yugao-san, I forgot to tell you there's been no hot water in this place for a couple years. I've gotten used to it. The boy shouted down the hall to the bathroom. You did that on purpose. Yugao's voice accused. If you want to go through the streets and into your home smelling like years-old ramen broth, be my guest. I'm sure Anko-san would love that. There was silence, then some resigned grumbling from the bathroom making Naruto and Hiruzen smile. The old man took a sip out of his cup of tea. This is quite good, he observed, genuinely impressed. We concur. A voice echoed from the living room. They looked over to see the two masked Anbu escorts from earlier sitting comfortably on the couch as they held their cups up in salute to Naruto. The blonde chuckled. When you have a demon fox sensei force you to eat more healthy, you learn how to cook better. It also helps when I had Hiyashi-sama and Hinata-chan around to teach me the art of making good tea. The other three nodded in understanding. I have to ask though. How the hell are you drinking with your masks on? Naruto wanted to know. The two Anbu glanced at each other before looking over at the boy. He could feel their grins under the masks. Wouldn't you like to know? It's a trade secret. We have Kakashi-senpai to thank for that. One of them spoke as the three older men smiled at the boy's annoyed expression. It figures Kakashi-sensei had something to do with this. I've been watching him eat every single meal last summer break and I still couldn't figure out how the hell he was eating with the face mask still on. He complained. The Hokage chuckled for a moment before he became a little concerned about something. Naruto-kun, you said you haven't had hot water here for years. Are you unable to afford the bill? The third's insides twisted as he saw the boy's expression flash to anger for a moment, and he knew it wasn't about the money. They said they were turning off the gas line to this place since it's abandoned and they don't have a reason to believe a homeless orphan like me is living here legally, even though I still pay my monthly rent to the landlord who doesn't even live here. The Hokage narrowed his eyes in anger at this boy's continued discrimination. Then how are you getting gas for cooking? You just prepared hot tea for us. Naruto walked over to open a cabinet door next to the stove, revealing a large white tank hidden in there. I jury-rigged a propane tank to the stove. It takes too much gas for showering so I just left that alone. The Hokage sighed tiredly. He had thought he stamped out most of the boy's discrimination when he threatened the markets and restaurants into treating Naruto like a normal customer. Apparently he forgot about the utility companies. At least you're getting electricity and water. The old man and even the two Anbu growled when they saw the boy flinch nervously. I'll ask how you're getting them. The third said evenly as he glared at the boy expecting an answer. Alright, I managed to get electricity from the main transformer in the area after some trial and error. In a related matter, my clones refuse to have anything to do with electrical work. As for the water, it's just a matter of going down into the sewers to find the valves to allow water flow to here without the company knowing. Again, in a related matter, my clones refuse to go down any manhole. The boy explained as his face scrunched up at the memories he got from his clones at those times. This is unacceptable. Why didn't you tell me, Naruto-kun? Hiruzen demanded as he forcefully set his teacup down on the table. Because I don't want to come to you with every problem I have. If I think I can work around it, I just don't find it necessary to ask you or anyone else for help, Hokage Gigi. Naruto replied with a steady gaze as the old man sighed. Alright. Now that I know what's going on, I will not allow this. We'll discuss this when you return from the trip with Jiraiya-kun. Is that clear? Naruto just shrugged and nodded unenthusiastically when Yugao's voice emitted from the bathroom. Naruto-san, the pants barely fit, but are you sure this shirt is the only one you have that would fit me? It's the biggest size I have. Before Hokage Gigi here got the clothing shops to sell anything to me at regular prices, I was scavenging for any discarded clothing. Luckily for you, I kept some of them. It should fit you since it's a large. It's a large for a child. My breasts are going to pop out. Immediately, all three older men sported nosebleeds. The Hokage's was obvious while one could notice the two ANBU's nosebleeds underneath their masks if they saw a trail of blood going down their necks. Naruto sighed in annoyance before shouting down the hall. Alright. You can also have one of my jackets. It's oversized and should cover you up enough. You can keep it. That orange monstrosity. Look, it's either you causing neck injuries on the streets as every man within a mile snap their heads toward you to watch with hope for your girls to pop out, or wear my orange monstrosity. There was silence before they all heard a mumbled, okay. Naruto noticed the other three men glaring at him in annoyance. What? I'm not a pervert like you three. I'm not going to force her to come out in that shirt if it's embarrassing for her. A moment later, a blushing Yugao finally stepped out of the bathroom in a pair of black Anbu-style pants, still a size or two too small for her, so they were tight around her long and slender legs and her curvaceous hips. In the right lighting, one could see every curve of her plump rear end easily. Naruto's orange jacket barely covered her torso entirely as her navel was exposed slightly and her well-endowed breasts strained against the chest area, threatening to have the zipper seam burst open. To top all this off, her damp hair was slightly curly and alluring, and some of it were sticking to her face and neck in a sexy manner. All the men had one thought. Wow, it's not as big a step down from the tight t-shirt as I thought. Thank you Kami-sama, for this wondrous sight. Yugao glared heatedly at the three older men, making them flinch and glance away as they wondered how she knew what they were thinking. She then sighed before turning toward Naruto sitting next to her superior at the kitchen table. Now, I want an explanation from start to finish in detail, Naruto-san. If I don't like what you have to say, I'll just say you surprised me the first time because I underestimated you. It won't happen again. An hour of explanations later. Naruto sat still in his seat at the table as he stared across at the stunned visages of the Hokage and Yugao. The Anbu escorts left long ago, sent out by the Hokage to avoid the sensitive details of what happened last night being overheard by too many people. As the boy expected, the old man's stunned expression slowly shifted into a frown. It was obvious his surrogate grandfather didn't approve of his recklessness, even though this resulted in Enko finally being free of the curse mark's effects. Yugao's reaction, on the other hand, was unexpected in the boy's mind. He had expected her to get angry at him for risking Enko's health. He didn't expect the woman's mouth to be agape and her eyes wide open in a desperate stare at him as they slowly became watery. Why you be broke that snake's curse on her? Tell me why you're not joking, Naruto-san. Her voice trembled as she stared intently at the boy for any sign of deceit. The boy shifted nervously under her hungry gaze, before he flinched when she stood to her feet to lean over the table, her face inches from his. Her chair clattered back noisily from the action. Tell me you're not joking right now. She screamed, desperate for this to be true. At this point, tears began to form at the outer corners of her beautiful chocolate brown eyes. Naruto fixed his steely gaze with hers, all trace of his previous nervousness gone. I'm not joking. I would never do that when it's something this serious. It's gone. Totally destroyed. I corrupted it with the fox's chakra and I watched it shatter into a million pieces and they just disappeared from Anko-san's skin. After that she relaxed immediately and seemed to be sleeping contentedly when I left her. The last sentence struck Yugao deeply. Her pupils shrank as she realized something she didn't notice when she first checked up on the still sleeping Anko. Her younger surrogate sister wasn't thrashing around and breaking out in cold sweat like she did most nights when the curse mark caused her horrible nightmares. Keeping her gaze trained on Naruto, Yugao slowly stepped around the table to his side and just let herself sink numbly to her knees to get her level with the seated boy. Naruto was wondering what was going on before he was pulled into a bone-crushing hug as Yugao wrapped herself tightly around the boy's frame, her face buried in his neck. He blushed bright red at feeling her large chest press tightly against his before he sobered up upon hearing quiet sobs from the purple-haired woman. You have no idea how much Anko-chan suffered with that curse mark for years. Not only does it show others that she was tainted by that fucking traitor, it made her suffer so much by whispering dark thoughts into her mind that she had to ignore all the time and it was giving her horrible nightmares nearly every night. Just hearing her describe one of her nightmares kept me up for nights. There were days that she nearly went insane and just wanted to kill everyone, and I had to talk her down. I nearly lost myself to despair several times listening to her cries and whimpers nearly every night and I couldn't do anything about it but be helpless. Thank you so much, Uzumaki Naruto. The woman softly whispered next to the boy's ear as she continued to squeeze the boy tightly in her embrace. Naruto could only smile gently as he softly patted the trembling woman on her back. He then shifted his gaze over to the third, who was still frowning non-approvingly. While I'm glad you've managed to rid Anko-chan of her greatest suffering, I still feel you were reckless in doing this, Naruto-kun. Dealing with an unknown seal require a delicate approach since we do not know what could happen if we made a mistake in the process of removing it. From the way you described it, you just went at it with brute force hoping it'd work. You put one of my best subordinates at risk doing that. You'll understand my disapproval of this. He said evenly as he narrowed his eyes. I know, Hokage Gigi. I would never have tried that before I learned one thing a few months ago. Naruto calmly spoke as the sobbing Yugao continued to hug him tightly, still feeling she hadn't shown him enough gratitude. The Hokage raised an eyebrow. Something to do with the Kyuubi, I presume. Naruto smirked. Flashback a few months ago, that's odd. Naruto thought as he looked down at a sizzling piece of paper. He was sitting cross-legged in the middle of his living room. All four walls, the floor, and even some of the ceiling were covered with papers with random scribblings. He was experimenting with seals and he had encased his entire room in a privacy barrier since he didn't want anyone else to get a glimpse of his experiments. That's an interesting result. Kurama suddenly spoke up from inside her seal. Yes. This storage seal should be able to store chakra, but when I tried to channel your chakra into the seal, it just fizzled out. I was hoping to see if using your chakra instead of my own would change anything. Let's try something else. Create a clone with some of my chakra for it to use, and get out an activated exploding tag. Naruto raised an eyebrow. The clone isn't going to like that. Luckily you can order it around. Do it. He sighed and created a frowning clone, who already began protesting immediately. After a minute of arguing and convincing it that it wasn't going to feel any pain anyway, the clone relented before they went downstairs into the trap room to get away from damaging sensitive documents in the living room. They activated another privacy barrier before the original placed an activated exploding tag in the middle of the room and stepped off to the side far enough from the tag's range. The clone nervously stepped up and bent down to carefully touch the tag in order to channel some of the demon fox's chakra directly into it. The clone closed its eyes as it expected to be blown to bits. When nothing happened for a few seconds, its eyes popped wide open to see the exploding tag fizzle out as if it was a dud. It then jumped around and celebrated its continued existence while Naruto observed the tag with an intrigued eyebrow. He then procured another exploding tag, a much more powerful one this time. The clone's mood took a nosedive as it noted the new tag in its creator's hand. After a few minutes of nerve-wracking experience, the traumatized and twitching clone dispelled itself without permission after the 5th test. Not like I needed you anymore. Naruto muttered as he looked over 5 fizzled exploding tags. So the first tag wasn't just a lucky dud then. My chakra corrupt seals activated with human chakra. That would be a fantastic development, but we have to test more different kinds of seals before we come to that definite conclusion. I wonder about the seal on my stomach though. Your chakra should have destroyed it, if it was activated by Dad. It must have been because it was powered by the Shinigami that your seal can contain me easily. As for my other siblings, the humans likely used their own chakra to power their sealing arrays in order to avoid the risk of corruption. So as long as I figure out how to activate any seal array with your chakra instead of mine, the seal shouldn't be corrupted that way. That's the theory, and we have a lot of testing to do. To the lab. Flashback end. After that, we broke every seal array we could create so badly, it's scary. Storage, elemental, weapon, barrier, privacy, trap. The list goes on. They're all pathetic before the fox's chakra. Also, just to be sure it wasn't just my chakra that the fox's chakra could only break, we borrowed and tested several seals powered by various people's chakra throughout the village. Same results. That's why I felt somewhat confident about breaking Anko-san's seal, even if it was more advanced and complex than what I've managed to test so far. Naruto finished the explanation with a somber look. The Hokage stared at Naruto in pale-faced shock. Yugao had let go of Naruto while he was in the middle of his explanation and was looking at him with an impressed look. Why you realize what this means? The old man murmured in a low whisper. Naruto just nodded with a serious look. Hokage-sama, you sound like you weren't pleased about this. Yugao quizzed with her head cocked in confusion. Naruto snorted. It means my life would be in even more danger if people found out about this. He said dismissively as if he was talking about the weather. Yugao narrowed her eyes as she looked over at the Hokage hoping for a contradiction only to see him nodding his head gravely. Before she could speak more, the Hokage put a hand up for silence with a tense expression. As Naruto and Yugao looked at him, the old man pointed a finger down the hallway. They nodded in understanding before they all moved silently into the bedroom. Within seconds, Naruto activated the room's privacy seal. Why would Naruto-san have to worry for his life? Yugao suddenly asked as the barrier rose. Because he most likely stumbled onto the master key for nearly every seal array in existence. I would think that'd be good. If he could infiltrate any village, bypass any sealed room or chest, and is able to get out of trap seals easily, he'd be a deadly shinobi. Yugao continued, not getting the picture. That's exactly why. That kind of ability won't stay hidden long if we overuse it, and what do you think will happen when other villages find out about him? They'll panic about their security and send legions of assassins after him. I don't even want to think about the people within this village as well. The Hokage spoke with an edge to his voice. Why would we have to worry about our own village? Sure, the villagers don't have much love for Naruto-san, but they don't have much to do with seals. Yugao quizzed as she suddenly realized how much danger Naruto could be in from enemies from outside, but she wasn't sure about what their own village could have to do with this. The Hiraishin scroll, to name just one thing. Naruto suddenly interjected. The Hokage and Yugao looked over at the blonde with surprise, before they nodded in understanding. If it's around, then it's most likely under tight lock and key with multiple seal arrays all over it, only to be opened by a qualified person. The fourth Hokage probably never accounted for the fox's chakra in his seals until when he designed the 4 symbols and 8 trigrams seal array for the fox. Naruto theorized. He made sure to leave out any mention of his connection to his father in his previous explanation and just now since Yugao wasn't privy to that information. I can name at least 5 people that would kidnap you and force you to unseal anything they want in this village for their personal gain. The Hokage growled as he focused his mind on particularly one person, his old teammate Danzo. That's absurd. I won't allow this. Yugao's face twisted into disgust. Good, because I'm declaring this a SS rank secret, Yugao-san. It will not even be recorded anywhere. Only you, Naruto-kun, and I know this, and we will keep it in our heads. As Naruto-kun and I trust Jiraiya-kun implicitly, and this has to do with seals, I will inform him also, and no one else. If anyone else comes to either of you about this, eliminate that person immediately. It will only be verbally passed down to people you trust completely in the future. If, for any reason, you don't trust any new Hokage after me 100%, do not even tell him or her. Naruto-kun, this ability does not officially exist outside of us three. Is that understood? The powerful third Hokage spoke in a low voice as he glared and spiked his chakra pressure at Yugao and Naruto, who both flinched nervously before saluting with a hand over their hearts and bowing. Yes, Hokage-sama, they said loudly at the same time. The Hokage nodded solemnly before continuing. Naruto-kun, you're to use that ability only if the situation calls for it as a last resort, and be discreet about it. If there were any witness, use your judgment on if you would allow this person to live or not. If not, terminate the person or people with extreme prejudice. I'm serious about this. It's for your and this village's safety. Naruto sobered as if doused with cold water at being given free rein to kill any witness, but he understood the seriousness of this. Yes, Hokage-sama. The blonde replied less enthusiastically this time. Hiruzen understood his surrogate grandson's reluctance, but he knew the boy would make the right choice either way each time this came up in the future. He then turned toward his female Anbu. Yugao-san, I'm sorry, but the only reason you're even in this discussion is because you happened to hear this by accident, and I needed to make the implications of spreading news of this very clear. Otherwise, it would have been just between Naruto-kun and me if I had anything to say about it. I trust you, so please do not betray my expectations. The woman felt pride in gaining her Hokage's absolute trust as she bowed deeply at her hips. Yes, Hokage-sama. I owe Naruto-san my life for saving my little sister from any further suffering under that damn curse mark. I will never do anything to compromise his safety. I'd like to make a request, if you don't mind. The blonde interjected. The Hokage and Yugao inclined their heads to show they were listening. Please don't tell Anko-san that I broke the seal right away. I don't want her to feel like she owes me anything. Naruto quickly explained the last part as soon as he saw the rebellious look forming on Yugao's face. Why? She should know who freed her from years of misery. She was about to continue ranting when she was stopped by Naruto pointing a finger at her. If your reaction to me breaking the curse was any indication, I don't want to find out how much more extreme her reaction would be. I'm not saying she has to be clueless forever. Just until after she got used to the idea of life without the seal on her, then maybe she'd be more calm about thanking me. Naruto spoke calmly as Yugao blushed slightly at the reminder of her crying and hugging the boy for all he was worth for 30 minutes. He seemed to have a way of making her uncharacteristically unlike her usual stoic demeanor. It will be difficult to keep Anko-chan in the dark. She's going to do everything she can to find out your identity. The Hokage offered. You're welcome to use Ero Sennin in my place. It'd explain why she was shirtless anyway. The two adults flinched at the boy's sinister smirk as he imagined Anko going after Jiraiya with every kunai on her person for supposedly getting her half naked. The Hokage quickly shook his head. As much as that might be fun to see, Jiraiya-kun was the one who applied the evil sealing method technique. If he couldn't remove the seal back then, she wouldn't believe it was him this time. Besides, you haven't heard Anko go into details many times about how much she would thank the person for removing the curse mark, no matter who the person would be, even if it turned out to be a female. She might actually do something she'd regret with Jiraiya-sama. Yugao quickly cut in, her face scrunching up at the image of Anko and Jiraiya going at it. The boy paled at the thought before shaking it off to continue. All the more reason why I shouldn't reveal myself yet. Besides, there's your law, Hokage Jiji. Naruto replied as he looked at the Hokage, who raised an eyebrow indicating this needed further explanation. There's a lot of details about me surrounding this incident that's forbidden by your law, so they cannot be revealed to anyone below Junin rank. Last time I checked, Anko-san's a Chunin, isn't she? That's a sloppy excuse and you know it. Though it might be enough to keep her off our case for a while until things calm down. I guess we'll have to respect your wishes for now, though you should note we do it with reluctance. The Hokage spoke as he put on a thoughtful expression. Wait a minute. What the hell am I supposed to tell Anko-chan? Yugao interjected loudly. She then trembled under the evil smirks given off by the two males. You figure it out. They both said at the same time. A few minutes later, after Yugao said her goodbye, albeit reluctantly, she left the blonde and the old man alone to go check if Anko had woken up yet. There's something you left out when you explained your situation from last night. What is it? Hiruzen said matter-of-factly when he confirmed there was no one within earshot of them. Naruto put a hand behind his neck nervously. Yeah. Remember when I explained the situation with the yin half being taken out of the fox and I can't bring out more of her chakra without going crazy because of that? The Hokage nodded quietly, waiting for the punchline. We just found out some of the fox's old chakra with the yin essence still exists. The old man narrowed his eyes in anger as he connected the dots, and growled. So my ex-student is willing to go so far as to put the Kyuubi's chakra in innocent humans. Naruto nodded to confirm this. That's why I broke the seal, in addition to wanting to stop Anko-san's suffering. I absorbed all the fox's chakra that was in her. This morning, I woke up with this. Naruto brought his right hand up and channeled some of the demon fox's chakra into it. The Hokage watched in amazement as crimson fur suddenly grew out of Naruto's skin on his forearm and hand, and the fingertips sharpened into intimidating-looking claws. Is that all you can transform into at this moment? He finally inquired after spending a long moment looking closely at the boy's arm. I don't know. I wasn't able to test anything before Yugao-san dropped by unannounced. Naruto grumbled as Hiruzen smiled amusedly at the boy's previous predicament. We have the privacy barrier still up. Go ahead and channel the chakra to everywhere on your body and see what happens. He encouraged, curious if there was more to this new development. Naruto tried this and the only change was that his left hand also grew the same fur and claws. I haven't tried bringing up my shroud. I wonder if it's different. He pointed out to the Hokage, who allowed further experimentation with a nod of his head. Naruto brought out even more power, enough to form a one-tailed chakra shroud. The Hokage had to hold his ground steady at being next to such a massive presence from the demon fox. The chakra shroud formed almost too quickly, but there was no new physical changes aside from his fur-covered hands. I don't remember it being this easy to bring it out so fast. And I feel slightly less on edge. Usually when I'm using the shroud I get a little aggressive and irritable easily. Now, I actually feel like I can think a bit more clearly. I wonder if I can get more like this the more yin-infused chakra we find. Naruto commented as he let the shroud dissolve after a moment of observing. So far, the effects seem to be positive, Naruto-kun. I just thought of something and I'd like to take you someplace and see if you can feel something different. The third said as he had the privacy barrier brought down. Naruto, despite being confused, agreed and allowed himself to be taken with his grandfather figure via Shunshin as soon as they stepped outside of the boy's apartment. In a short while, Naruto and the third appeared atop a water tower located high on a building's roof. The blonde glanced around with a confused expression, taking in the new surrounding. There were buildings all around them and Konoha's perimeter wall loomed large over them, casting a long shadow over the entire area in the late morning sunlight. Naruto-kun, what's different about this area? The third mysteriously asked as he looked down at the boy for any reaction. Naruto simply checked around for the Hokage Tower located at the center of the village under the Hokage Monument, usually his point of reference while navigating this large village. He realized right away he was basically on the very opposite side of the village from where he lived. The west side of the village near the entrance to the Hokage Monument was where he always spent most of his life. The orphanage, the academy, the clan's district, his favorite restaurants, his apartment, everything he ever needed was packed into that section of the village, so Naruto rarely veered over to other sections of the village, especially all the way over here on the east side. I doubt I ever set foot in this area. However, I'm noticing a lot of the buildings around here seem pretty new compared to the older ones I see over by where I live. Is that important? Part of it. Keep guessing if you can. He continued to think intently as he observed anything different about this area while checking over every building and person walking on the streets below the two. Inside his seal, Kurama grimaced as she realized where they were and almost didn't want her container to find out more about her shameful behavior on the night she was controlled. This part of the giant wall seems to be lighter in color compared to the sections on the sides, like it's been repaired. Naruto observed before he froze in realization. If this section was still destroyed, the hole would have been the size of a certain giant fox. It's where the fox attacked this village, isn't it? It wasn't a question. Yes, Naruto-kun. Before they rebuilt this section, it was mostly destroyed all the way up to that large outdoor market. The third explained as he pointed at a certain building quite a distance behind where they appeared. I didn't bring you here to try to guilt trip the Kyuubi or anything. I wanted to see if you can feel something in the air like you did when Anko-chan's curse mark flared up. The Hokage clarified. Could have fooled me. The fox grumbled. I think I know what he means to do. He's wondering if we can still find traces of your chakra around here. It'd be difficult. All of these buildings are new, so there would be little to no trace of my chakra from back then. The only thing we can do is try using the technique. Even though it's incomplete, if you try doing it my way, it'll absorb any demonic chakra from the surrounding air like my Bijudama. I can feel very faint traces of my presence all over this place. I just don't know how much of it you can actually absorb. It looks like there are very small traces of the fox's presence here. Because a lot of these buildings in the wall are new, we're not going to find much, if any, chakra to absorb. What about the area beyond the wall? Naruto inquired of the old man, who shook his head. It would be a waste of time. That area was turned into a barren wasteland for a few years when whatever trees were left over from the destruction died out slowly as if something were destroying them. We assumed them to be affected by the Kyuubi's chakra left over from the attack. We had Tenzo forcibly regrow that section of the forest since his wood element's ability to subdue and eliminate demonic chakra is potent. With the chakra-enhanced trees covering the wasteland now, there's only going to be a minuscule amount, if any, of the demon fox's chakra out in that area. Naruto nodded his head before hopping up to the tallest point in the section nearby. The Hokage followed, interested in seeing what the boy was going to do. Hokage Jiji, I'm gonna have to use some of the fox's chakra for this. Though it'd be a small amount, these people aren't going to be happy feeling the fox's presence. I've got that covered, Naruto-kun. The third replied as he snapped his fingers. A bear-masked Anbu appeared at the old man's side in an instant, making Naruto jump slightly. Bear-san, have this section evacuated within minutes. Make up a cover story. I want every regular shinobi and civilian within 100 meters of us in all directions gone in the next 10 minutes. The Anbu bowed and disappeared as quickly as he came. Within seconds, Naruto heard alarmed voices as the civilians below began to be herded out of this section. He could hear people mentioning something about a gas main leaking somewhere in this area. The boy then slowly looked up at the smirking Hokage with stars in his eyes. Being Hokage is awesome, he exclaimed with a childish expression of awe. Hokage-sama, the section has been cleared out. What is your order? Bear reappeared at the Hokage's side on his knee after a few minutes of waiting. Pull back out beyond the 100 meters boundary around us. That includes every Anbu. The only remaining life in this area should be just us two. The third ordered firmly. Bear hesitated for a moment, not wanting to leave the Hokage unprotected, but he decided that should anything happen, the third could handle himself long enough for him and his colleagues to reach him in time. The masked man bowed his head before disappearing again. The Hokage then felt all of the Anbu leaving the area. After a moment, it was just him and Naruto. Okay, go ahead, Naruto-kun. Naruto responded by bringing his right hand straight out in front of him, its palm facing up and fingers curled inward as if he was holding a ball. The Hokage could feel an influx of the demon's chakra moving slowly through his arm before a partial shroud formed around it. Before long, the old man began to see wisps of dark chakra appear from thin air to float aimlessly around the boy's hand. After a long few minutes of more appearing out of thin air, the dark chakra began to whirl and spin into the shape of a small ball, no bigger than a meat bun, floating above Naruto's right palm. The Rasengan, impossible, the old man murmured in wide-eyed shock. Not really. I still haven't mastered that. Naruto countered as he concentrated on molding the dark chakra into a perfect sphere. The Hokage looked over at his face in surprise. If that's not the Rasengan, I'll eat my hat. Naruto chuckled as he strained to maintain the spherical shape of the dense chakra. Get your ketchup and mustard ready, then. This is closer to the fox's Bijudama than the Rasengan. Though I would say this is a mixture of both, I guess. It's just me doing the first step of the Rasengan training when I'm using my cloak. For some reason, it forms using any residual demonic chakra around us instead of my own or the fox's chakra. You're right. It's not spinning as much. Is that all the chakra from around here? Naruto nodded. The fox explained to me that demonic chakra is naturally attracted to a strong source of demonic presence, and it just needed to be directed. That's how all the Biju seem to have infinite power. They automatically absorb residual malicious chakra from the environment all the time. Anyway, this is my first time doing this out of the mindscape and I'm going to try to absorb this into my body. I may collapse afterward, so you're welcome to drop my body off at my apartment when this is over. Wait. What was the last sentence you just said? The third's voice rose in alarm. Naruto didn't reply as he let his shroud slowly wrap around and surround the black chakra ball. Upon contact, the ball began to disintegrate into the shroud. With pieces of the dark chakra swimming around inside the red shroud, Naruto simply retracted the shroud into his body, absorbing the new chakra in the process. The blonde turned toward the worried Hokage and smiled wide. Success. The world then went black with blinding pain. 15 minutes later, the third sighed in relief as his surrogate grandson seemed to have finally stopped twitching and holding in his screams of pain as he became still. He now began to breathe evenly as if he was in a deep sleep. From how much pain he seemed to be in a moment ago, the old man was amazed the boy hadn't let out a loud scream the entire time. Bending down to check Naruto's body for any damage and finding none, the third decided he would at least put the boy somewhere more comfortable than on a building's rooftop. He decided Naruto's apartment was out as there was no door and a large window was missing. He made a mental note to have the repairs done at Yugao's expenses in the near future. For now, one place came to mind for shelter. He grinned almost mischievously as he easily picked the boy up to drape over his back before setting off in a certain direction. 10 minutes later, Hyuga compound Hyuga Hiyashi walked toward the compound's main gate with a raised eyebrow. He was busy training his daughters when one of the guards suddenly interrupted with a message that the Hokage was waiting for him at the gate. Opening the gate, he was surprised to see the Hokage, who was smiling gently, with a certain blonde boy on his back. However, he wasn't the Hyuga clan head for nothing as he kept his features neutral before he bowed slightly and greeted the Hokage. Hokage-sama, you honor me and the clan with your presence at our compound. To what do we owe this visit? My apologies, Lord Hiyashi, for stopping by unannounced. I'll only be a few minutes. I have a small favor to ask of you. Certainly. Anything for the Hokage. Naruto-kun here fell unconscious due to a side effect of an incomplete jutsu he was attempting a few minutes ago. However, due to an incident earlier this morning at his apartment, its security has been compromised. We're taking action to remedy that, but, in the meantime, I'd like to make sure he's with someone he can trust while he's still in this vulnerable state. Would you be willing to watch over him? It's only until he wakes up. Of course. Naruto-san is always welcome here. Hiyashi immediately replied as he nodded for one of the gate's guards to retrieve the unconscious boy off the Hokage's back. Thank you very much. Have a pleasant day and I'll see you around. The Hokage bowed slightly before walking off in the direction of the Hokage tower. As Hiyashi and the guard carrying Naruto entered the compound, the clan head suddenly spoke up. Yushi-san. Please take Naruto-san to Tomo-san. My daughters are busy training and does not need to know their friend is here in this compound for the time being. Otherwise they would be distracted, especially since he is unconscious. He will be well taken care of by Tomo-san until then. The guard, Yushi, raised an eyebrow. Forgive this one's rudeness, my lord, but isn't Tomo-san hosting a clan-wide meeting for women only in the main hall at this moment? He swore he heard his lord mutter, even better. But chalked that up to his imagination. She would not mind. In fact, I dare say she would be quite welcoming. Please do this and get back to your post. Hiyashi commanded and Yushi quickly carried out his orders. As they split up and Hiyashi went back to his daughters alone, one would see his incredibly sadistic smirk if anyone were nearby. Early afternoon at the apartment of the Purple Sisters. Ow, what the hell hit me? Mitarashi Anko croaked as she finally woke up, sitting up on the couch as she clutched at her forehead with both hands. As she did this, the blanket that was draped over her last night fell off, exposing her chest still clad in her purple-laced bra. I would say a potent drug combined with a couple nasty hits to your stomach from lowlifes. A voice spoke from next to her. Enko stiffened for a moment before realizing who the voice belonged to. She let out a relieved sigh as she turned to look at her surrogate older sister, Yugao, sitting in a chair next to the couch. She was dressed in a normal t-shirt and sport shorts, her usual outfit to get comfortable in when she was home. There was no way she would allow Enko to see what she came home in, so she immediately discarded the outfit Naruto lent to her. Thankfully only 1 or 2 people saw her on the way home as she exclusively took the rooftops. Did they? Enko let the question hang in the air as she nervously looked at the floor next to the couch. The memories of last night were coming back to her. She didn't feel anything physically wrong with herself other than a slightly sore and bruised stomach, but that didn't mean anything until she got full confirmation. To her immense relief, Yugao quickly shook her head no. After letting relief flood her, Enko instinctively drew her blanket up to cover her chest as if to protect herself from imaginary monsters. She trembled slightly at such a close call as she dug through her memories some more. Seeing her sister begin to withdraw into herself, Yugao put a comforting hand on her shoulder. You were lucky, Enko-chan. In more ways than one. If it wasn't for the Kyuubi's chakra being in you, Naruto-san would never have sensed you being in trouble and these scums would have had all the time with you. In a way, your curse mark saved you from a terrible experience after trying its best to make you suffer for 5 years. If that's not the definition of irony, then what is? Who saved me? I remember a voice interrupting those pig bastards just when I passed out. Enko murmured more to herself than to her surrogate sister as she searched through her memories deeply for any clue on who was her savior. Okay, now's the time to start the bullshit. You better appreciate this, Naruto-san. Yugao grumbled in her head. Sorry, Enko-chan. A patrolling Anbu found you alone and unconscious in the alley. There were no one else. Apparently whoever saved you took his or her battle elsewhere. Yugao lied smoothly. All the training she had with the Anbu had to at least count for something today after being unable to put down a 12-year-old boy. A very strong 12-year-old perhaps, but still a boy nonetheless. Enko narrowed her eyes slightly. Yugao may think she's a great liar, but the slight twitching of her right eyelid gave it away. I think my training in interrogation for the T&I department is working out great. She thought excitedly as she figured out ways to trap Yugao and catch her red-handed. She decided to go the simple route. I find that hard to believe. There were 5 guys around me. This person must have been quite strong to be able to get them all away from me. Enko had to fight to hide her devious smirk at springing the trap as she watched Yugao slowly forget about keeping up her cover story while her expression became puzzled. Wait a minute, I was told there were 3, gotcha. Enko whispered with a victorious smile. Goddammit. Yugao groaned as she smacked both her palms to her forehead hard. She understood how Naruto felt earlier when she pulled the same trick on him. So there was a witness at least. Tell me who it was that saved me. I know you have that information. Enko said firmly with no humor now. I can't do that, Enko-chan. The person requested to remain anonymous. Yugao replied just as seriously. I don't give a shit about what was requested. I want to know who it is so I can repay this person, and I would do almost anything. It doesn't matter if it was a request, tell me the identity now. Enko almost shouted at her sister. She had no patience to deal with anyone dancing around the answer when she wanted it straight up. Yugao sighed dejectedly and decided to just get the revelation about Enko's now non-existent curse mark out. The sooner she dealt with this, the faster they'd get it out of the way. Maybe that person's right. If you're already this adamant about repaying your savior, I wonder how you're going to be when you find out the same person removed the curse mark. For a moment, it seemed like Enko didn't hear what Yugao just said, but her light brown pupil-less eyes slowly shrank in size as the younger woman seemed to be repeatedly going over every single syllable. She instinctively reached up with a hand toward her neck where the curse mark used to be. You're lying, she quietly said with such conviction that Yugao was almost inclined to believe that the mark somehow reappeared without her noticing. Why are you lying? This is a sick joke, Yugao nay. Enko's voice dripped with betrayal, and Yugao felt a little hurt that her surrogate sister thought right away she'd hurt her purposely. I'm not, Enko-chan. You just woke up, so you probably haven't noticed that the side effects of the mark disappeared. If you need further proof, go look in the mirror. She suggested as she looked intently at Enko for her reactions. The younger woman's lips trembled while her eyes began to water, and her hand was now shaking over where the curse mark was on her neck. It has to be a trick. There's no way it just disappeared. I've been living with this for years and it just disappears one night while I wasn't even awake for it. There's no way it could be that easy. Enko's face twisted into despair as she strained to not allow herself to believe this new reality. Look in the mirror, Yugao ordered firmly. Enko shook her head violently like a child, her fanned purple ponytail swaying. I can't. What if this is an illusion? Her voice cracked as her eyes squeezed shut with desperation. It's not. I'll be right there next to you, okay? Yugao cooed soothingly as she slowly took her younger sister's hand in hers. It broke her heart to feel Enko's hand tremble violently in her grip as she continued to fight against the new reality. She knew how Enko felt. She had been so traumatized by being tainted with this curse mark that she believed firmly that it would be with her for the rest of her life and had given up on any hope of getting rid of it years ago. For it to just disappear one day was a reality that she never dreamed of at all, and she just wasn't able to bring herself to accept that, finally, something had gone right for her. Yugao slowly stood and gently pulled Enko up with her, letting her blanket fall off. She then gently pulled the half-naked and near catatonic younger woman toward the bathroom. Every once in a while, Enko would tug at her grip as if wanting to break free and stay as far away from any mirror as possible. She would not allow that as she then pushed her increasingly resisting little sister through the bathroom door, both of her hands firmly on the younger girl's bare shoulders. Just as they stood in front of the mirror above the sink, Enko closed her eyes tightly and twisted around in Yugao's grip so that she buried her face in the taller woman's chest like a child would, still refusing to look at the mirror as if she would be cursed again if she did. Yugao sighed exasperatedly, and smiled gently down at her sister as she began removing the hair clip holding Enko's hair up into its usual fanned style as it was frazzled and disheveled from last night anyway. Enko seemed to have calmed down almost immediately in the older woman's embrace when she felt her long hair fall freely down her back and Yugao began to rake a hand through it to smooth it over. The Anbu always knew the best way to calm Enko down was to play with her beautiful purple hair. If one were to look at the women standing together in the bathroom right now, he or she would believe without any doubt they were sisters by blood with their long purple hair flowing down their backs and the long bangs framing their faces. Enko-chan, I always knew from the moment I met you in that lab that you would be one of the most beautiful women in this village. Perhaps in the entire nations. Yugao cooed like a mother down at Enko, who scoffed lightly against her chest. She smiled amusedly, at least she was listening. There was just one thing I didn't like. She continued in her gentle voice. Enko stiffened slightly in her embrace but kept calm as she kept raking soothingly through the younger woman's long and silky hair. It was that ugly and evil mark on your neck left by a monster who I hate with all my being for putting such a wonderful person like you through hell. You didn't deserve all that happened to you since the night you were tricked into leaving the village with him. None of it. That's why I am so proud of you for sticking it out through everything since you came back to the village. I have always hoped your life would turn around someday and I believe that day has come today. She spoke quietly as she gently turned her little sister around in her embrace to face the mirror. Enko's eyes were still closed tightly, but she didn't seem as nervous as before. Without the mark on you, I can say with certainty you're the most beautiful young woman in the nations now. Yugao whispered into one of Enko's ears as she lifted some long hair away, clearly showing the smooth and unblemished skin where the mark would have been. At that point, Enko's eyes slowly fluttered open, and she remained still as they quickly focused on the spot where the curse mark was. Yugao could see the light brown irises shrink in disbelief as Enko finally saw the new reality staring her in the face. It's true. I don't see it. Enko's quiet voice trembled as her eyes focused on her neck. Just to be sure, her eyes searched the rest of her exposed torso in the mirror to confirm that the mark simply hadn't moved elsewhere. She brought her hand up to rub at the original spot with her fingers carefully, afraid she would make it reappear if she was rough. It really is gone. I can't believe it. Her lips slowly parted into a truly happy smile that Yugao rarely saw on her younger sister. Happy tears began flowing freely for both women. I can't believe it, she trailed off as she broke down sobbing. Her older sister simply hugged her tightly from behind with gentle shushing as she wailed louder. Their legs gave out so Yugao allowed herself to sink down onto the floor with her back against the bathtub across from the sink. She then had Anko cuddle up between her legs against her chest as the long-suffering young woman continued to let out all of the misery she had to hold in for years. Yugao took a moment to inwardly thank one Uzumaki Naruto as she rested her chin on top of Anko's head, and listened to her beloved little sister's soul-cleansing cries filling the small bathroom. Some time later at the Hyuga compound after she finished her daily training, Hinata heard from her father that Naruto had been here in the compound for a while. After momentarily surprising her father with her annoyed glare for not knowing about her beloved Naruto sooner, she rushed over to the main hall. Bursting through the doors into the meeting hall, her pale eyes came upon a large group of Hyuga women surrounding someone, although she couldn't tell who it was without using her Byakugan. The women glanced over at the new arrival before all of them grinned mischievously as they bowed to the clan heiress. "Welcome, Lady Hinata. I presume you came here for Uzumaki-sama. He's over there." One of them spoke, pointing toward the center of the group. Thanking her, the heiress worked her way through the crowd carefully to come upon a strange sight. Naruto was lying unconscious on a large cushion on the floor surrounded on all sides by 5 or 6 Hyuga women of all age and size as they cuddled up to whatever they could hold on to. From time to time, some of the women that were standing around the cuddling women would step up and complain that it was their turn to cuddle up to the boy. Some of them even got into arguments. Hinata just stared at all of this with a deadpanned expression, having no words to express her emotions at the surreal sight she just saw. The Hyuga women finally saw Hinata staring at them with a neutral expression and they stopped what they were doing, waiting for their heiress reaction. Tomo, not noticing Hinata yet, popped her head up from cuddling alongside Naruto's right leg. "See. I told you Naruto-sama makes the perfect teddy bear. You all just can't keep your hands off him, can you?" she exclaimed before she squawked in surprise at seeing Hinata standing over her with a stony expression. "LL Lady Hinata." Tomo could only squeak out as she glanced guiltily up at the young heiress. "Tomo-chan." Hinata trailed off with her long bangs shadowing her eyes. "Why yes. Move over, please. Pardon. That's my spot. All of you can fight over the rest." Hinata spoke firmly with a glare. All the other women burst out laughing after taking a long moment to realize what their recently shy heiress had just said. Tomo was only too happy to relinquish the spot. A few minutes after Hinata settled into her favorite spot, Naruto stirred awake without anyone noticing. "Hinata-chan," his low voice called out. He somehow knew Hinata was with him even if he wasn't totally aware of his surroundings yet. "Eep." Hinata jolted in surprise as she became bright red and very still, squeezing tightly around his right leg. The other women jumped in surprise too, though they were very reluctant to let go of him as well. Naruto were glancing around at all the women surrounding him with a confused expression before realization dawned on him. "Let me guess. Hokage Gigi dropped me off here at your compound." A nod from Hinata. "Your dad took me in and decided he would leave me here to be taken care of by all of you." This time, all the women nodded with pink cheeks. Naruto became still with a blank expression for a long moment, making the tension rise a little. Then all the women nearly facefaulted when he just shrugged his shoulders lazily. "Whatever. I'll just prank them later. This is actually pretty comfortable. Have your fun." With that, he went back to sleep and the women burst into activity as they began to argue over who would next touch their teddy bear. Back at the Purple Sisters' apartment, "I still want to know." Enko suddenly spoke up for the first time after her crying stopped long time ago. She and Yugao just spent their time cuddling with each other on the bathroom floor since then. "Nope. Yugao nay." Enko whined childishly as she looked imploringly up at Yugao's face with her puppy eyes. It might have worked if her eyes weren't puffy and red with dark tear streaks running down her cheeks. "That won't work on me." This person specifically asked not to be identified. "While I don't agree with that, I have to respect it. If it makes you feel better," the person said, "you'll know after some time. Just not right now." Yugao explained, but Enko still had an impatient frown on her face. "Why bother hiding it from me at this moment then? You should know why, Enko-chan." "What?" "That I said if anyone managed to get this seal off, I was going to perform 100 blowjobs in a row, and then I'd gladly give him my virginity, including my ass, as we fuck like rabbits for an entire month." Enko said all of this with a straight face. It greatly disturbs me that what you just said is very tame compared to the last time you described how you'd thank whoever took the seal off. And what if it was a female? Yugao deadpanned. Strap on. Enko simply said as if it was obvious, making Yugao blush, before she continued. I was under the influence of the curse mark. Right now I'm just being sane and rational about how much I should owe for getting the seal off. And that is precisely why your savior didn't want to be identified. He doesn't want you to feel like you owe him anything. I suppose so, but I don't care. Thank you for telling me it was a he, though. Enko grinned impishly, much to Yugao's annoyance at revealing yet another bit of information by accident. Alright, you leave me no choice, Enko-chan. I'm pulling rank. Enko gasped. You can't, Yugao nay. I can and I will. I'm forbidding you from finding out more about this guy. It's an S-ranked secret only Junin and Anbu know anyway. No, I mean, you really can't. You're an Anbu and I'm still a regular nin. Technically, you don't exist in the shinobi force, so you can't really command me except when the old man says so. Unless you get reinstated. Enko teased with a smirk. Damn it. When did you get smart? Yugao sighed. In any case, some parts of this incident are still part of an S-ranked secret. Even if I don't command you, you're still not allowed to know who he is on orders of Hokage-sama, Chunin Mitarashi Anko. Yugao tried to be firm but wasn't able to pull it off as she still showed amusement at her little sister's stubbornness about this. Enko wasn't fazed by her threat. It doesn't matter whatever you say. I'm going to find out, and if I have to ride your ass about this every day until you break, I will do it. Enko challenged. Yugao smirked. Try it. For now, I think I'll have a little fun, she suddenly exclaimed as she began tickling Enko, who was still cuddling against her and wasn't prepared for the sudden attack. Enko shrieked in laughter as the two women wrestled around playfully on the bathroom floor. A week and a half later, 4 days before Naruto leaves for his third trip. Hokage-sama, you have to do something about Enko-chan. Yugao's tired voice echoed across the Hokage's office as she entered through the door in full Anbu outfit. The Hokage raised an eyebrow as he looked up from the paperwork he was doing. If he could see underneath the mask, he would have seen bags under her eyes and a sickly hue to her pale skin. Whatever did Enko-chan do, Neko-san, the third said almost amusedly, having a good idea of what was going on. I'm about to break. She's been constantly hounding me ever since that day. She kept finding ways to try to make me slip up and wouldn't let me get enough sleep. I don't think I can take it anymore at this rate. Either I tell her now or I break down and stab her repeatedly. Yugao's voice cracked on the last sentence, as if to show she was barely hanging by a thread. I see. So that's how she found out I also know about her savior's identity a few days ago. The Hokage exclaimed lazily as if he uncovered an obvious clue. Yugao flinched before bowing deeply. I'm sorry, Hokage-sama. She just is very good at drawing out bits of information one at a time. I don't blame you. Ibiki-san has been telling me Enko-chan is the most promising interrogator to come out of the T&I department in a long while. Yugao chuckled nervously. How do you know she knew? She hasn't threatened you into revealing it to her or anything, has she? She looked ready to apologize deeply for whatever her little sister may have done. Oh, nothing that drastic. I don't know what she has been doing with you, but she has been hinting to me that as long as I withhold the information from her, she would go insane with frustration. Hiruzen paused briefly before continuing. Quite frankly, she has a creative mind. I almost think she was going crazy slowly for real. Hokage-sama, what did she do? Yugao asked with trepidation in her voice. For one thing, she has been completing her missions in odd ways. Like the delivery mission the other day in which she forced her client to dance a jig while screaming unintelligibly before she would give him the package. Yesterday, she passed out several copies of Jiraiya-kun's books to the children of the village she was guarding from some bandits, saying they were great books for children. Needless to say, I received a strongly worded letter from the client this morning. Ooh no, Enko-chan. Yugao groaned as she slapped both her hands to her forehead in shame for her little sister. In addition to that, she's been spending a lot of her free time at that window. Hokage pointed to one of the windows on the right wall of his office. Yugao was confused as she carefully glanced over at the indicated window, before she stiffened in shock. On the window were clearly identifiable face and hand prints that could only belong to one Mitarashi Anko. She would spend the time pressing her face and hands against the window as if she was looking through a window into a toy story and just stare at me. Even when the Anbu shooed her off, she would come back not long after. The Hokage finished as he suppressed a small shiver. He had seen many horrors in his long life, but seeing Anko's face staring at him soullessly through the window all day certainly was in the top 5. Yugao stood still as she contemplated the extent Anko was going to go to find out this information about Naruto. I say we forget our promise to Naruto-san. She spoke immediately with no regret in her voice for the blonde. Agreed. Which is why I just sent Anko-chan out on an A-ranked interrogation mission with Ibiki-san today. She should be back in 3 days. The third smirked as leaned back in his chair. Yugao was about to ask what that had to do with giving Naruto up to Anko when she realized something. The Hokage could feel her smirk evilly underneath her mask. Getting one over Naruto-san and the stupid council at the same time, that's going to be a great day. May I have the office guard duty that day to see this? The Hokage nodded with a smile. Day before Naruto leaves for his training, Mitarashi Anko entered the Hokage's office with a slight spring to her step. The Hokage saw that she seemed to be in a really good mood, as if she had the best day ever. Welcome back, Anko-chan. I see that your mission went well. He observed as he leaned back in his chair. Yup. Turns out one of the targets looked very similar to one of the bastards that attacked me 2 weeks ago. Ibiki-san let me have him to myself while he took care of the others. Anko's innocent-looking smile grew even wider at that, if that was possible. The Hokage shivered and made a note to himself not to piss this woman off. I see. Did you get the information we needed? Of course, old man. He gave everything up since his birth until Ibiki-san told me to tone it down. Another cold shiver went down the old man's spine. For even making the hardened interrogator tell someone to tone it down had to mean Ibiki had seen horrors he would never forget at the hands of this young woman. Anyway, I'm going to go home and bug Yugao some more, so here's the mission rep. Anko was interrupted when the Hokage held his hand out for silence. She was in the process of taking the stamped mission scroll out of a pocket on her flak vest when she was stopped. She put on a cute confused pout as she cocked her head to the side, her fanned ponytail swaying with the movement. Hold off on officially completing the mission. Let me get someone here, so please wait a moment, Anko-chan. The Hokage snapped his fingers for an Anbu to appear. Get me Naruto-kun. 10 minutes later Naruto appeared, pushing the office door open loudly. What's up? Ho, whatever the blonde was going to say died in his throat as he noticed Anko standing in front of the Hokage's desk. She was looking at him quizzically. He was about to run back out of the office when the door closed behind him. Jolting in surprise at the sound of the door closing, he glanced behind to see a certain purple-haired Anbu with a hand on the doorknob. He narrowed his eyes at her as he practically felt the vicious smirk underneath her cat mask. He knew right away what this meeting was about, but he couldn't escape if Yugao and the Hokage was going to keep him here. Sighing in defeat, he walked up to stand next to the still confused Anko. Alright, let's get this over with, you backstabbing old bastard. Naruto grumbled as he crossed his arms over his chest. Anko whipped her head toward the blonde with wide-eyed surprise. Even she thought she was getting away with it a little when she was calling the powerful leader of Konoha, old man. Ah, Naruto-kun, your cruel words cut me deep. The Hokage retorted with mock hurt on his face. Shall I throw him in a cell? The cat-masked Yugao teased from behind. Anko was looking all over the place in growing confusion. Just what the hell is going on? She demanded. Hiruzen chuckled for a moment before schooling his face in a neutral expression. First, we'll begin with this, Anko-chan. You have shown outstanding abilities as a kunoichi in most areas, especially in interrogation, taijutsu, weapons, and assassination. In addition, you have been getting much stronger over the past 2 weeks. Truth be told, if it was only up to me, you would have been a Junin long ago. The Hokage smiled as Anko slightly blushed at the praise she was getting. She knew she was getting stronger now thanks to the seal being removed. It wasn't holding her back anymore and she allowed herself to go all out without worrying about any backlash from the mark. While she was a long way from fully matching up to an elite like Kakashi and Guy, she would be able to at least give them a run for their money for a while before they overpowered her. However, unfortunately for you, the Junin judges and the council would not bring themselves to overlook your past and simply evaluate your current skills as they should. The third noticed Anko stiffen at the mention of her past, and she was looking nervously over at Naruto, who was watching the whole process with a neutral expression. Anko-chan doesn't care if the entire village knew her past, but she was worried about this one young boy knowing it. I wonder why. Which is why I'm thankful that there is an obscure old law from the Second Great War that hadn't been repealed by the daimyo court yet. Granted, not many know about this, and I intend to keep it that way. It's why I stopped you from officially reporting your mission as complete. The Hokage smiled as Anko's confused expression began to clear away when she seemed to have realized where this conversation was going. Even Naruto, upset as he was, smiled in support for Anko. The third continued. It allows for the Hokage or the Junin commander to do a field promotion of any Chunin to Junin in an active B-rank mission or higher with no question if there was a recommendation from the Chunin's commander as well. It just so happens I have a letter here from Morino Ibiki strongly praising your abilities and asking for an immediate promotion to the rank of a full Junin, and I agree too. He declared as he pulled out a paper with Anko's promotion order on it to sign it. It took a moment for the news to hit Anko as she stared at the Hokage with a neutral expression before her lips slowly formed into a bright smile. Then she began hopping around excitedly. Yes, I did it. Take that, you council cocksuckers, she cheered loudly as she flipped a bird in the general direction of the council chamber. Afterward, she quickly hugged Yugao tightly and then picked the protesting Naruto up and swung him around. Even the blonde had to laugh happily after a few seconds, however. Wait. Anko suddenly stopped mid-celebration as she held Naruto still in the air with one of her legs bent at her knee, demonstrating her amazing balance on just one foot. She seemed to have remembered something. Naruto, meanwhile, was muttering, "Oh crap," as he struggled to get out of her surprisingly strong grip. Now that I'm Junin, who the hell did it? Who saved me? Anko looked over at the Hokage with a gaze that would not allow anyone to avoid the issue anymore. Fortunately for her, the third don't intend to drag this out any longer. He simply pointed at Naruto, who was now trying to sneak out one of the office's window. He froze when everyone's attention was on him. For a moment, Anko was stunned that it was this boy who saved her from the men and broke her curse mark. She then blinked in surprise that Naruto managed to get out of her sure grip as she checked her now empty hands still up in the air mid-celebration. Finally, she got annoyed that he would run away from her. She quickly flicked an arm out toward Naruto and several snakes shot out of her shirt's sleeve. Tsunejishu, hidden shadow snake hands. She shouted authoritatively as the snakes wrapped themselves around the boy's limbs just when he was jumping out of the window. Naruto gulped, and then yelped as the snakes pulled him back inside. In the next instant, he was being dragged struggling along the floor toward Anko. She then hoisted him up by his collar when he arrived at her feet. "So, Gaki, care to tell me why you were running away from sweet ol' me?" she sweetly asked with a fake smile plastered across her face now inches from his comically sweating one. Yugao snorted behind her mask. "Maybe it's because you sent your snakes after him," she interjected snarkily. Anko glared across at her older sister. "It's not my fault my secret admirer is so shy. Now, you understand you've freed me from years of pain and misery, and it would have gone on for a long time too. You also saved me from those pig bastards. You have no idea how much I appreciate that, Gaki." She spoke softly as she brought Naruto closer, her light brown eyes boring intensely into his blue ones. Naruto sighed tiredly as he freed himself from her grip to stand in front of her. "Just a, thank you, is fine. I didn't want to see you suffering so much under that awful seal, and I just happened to have a way of removing it when I saved you. So I did it. I'm not looking for anything from you except our continued friendship." He finished with a gentle smile. Anko frowned, and then let out a sigh. "I was going to just ignore what you just said and try my best to repay you for far more than that. I probably would have been very adamant about it if this was right after you took the mark off, but that I've had 2 weeks to think over this and calm down a little. I suppose I'll just take you up on your offer to continue keeping in touch in the future. Besides, I can't ignore your request when you smile like that." She smiled back just as gently, before bending down at her hips. She then wrapped her arms tightly around his neck for a crushing and enveloping hug, making the boy blush slightly as he felt her chest on his, even though it was buffered by her padded flak vest. Thank you so much. You saved my honor, and you got that mark off me. Even after all that, you still never asked for anything in return. Thank you. Her voice trembled as she spoke next to the boy's ear. Naruto nodded before wrapping his arms around her to hug her back just as tightly. After a long moment, Anko had a mischievous twinkle in her eyes as she whispered into his ear. However, I might change my mind about your reward when you get a few years older. You're going to be very easy on the eyes, I can tell. I wouldn't mind if my first time is with you, you know. She teased before leaving a ghost of a peck on his neck and releasing the boy to reveal a wide-eyed Naruto with a blush on his cheeks that rivaled the best of Hinata's. Anko chuckled while Yugao and the Hokage wondered what she had said to him. I'm curious as to how you got the seal off me, though. Anko put on a thoughtful expression. I'm afraid that's classified even for a Junin. Only Naruto-kun and I know. The Hokage quickly cut in, making sure to leave Yugao out so Anko would not try anything with her. Yugao and the Hokage then facefaulted when she just shrugged as if she didn't care, since they were expecting her to doggedly go after this information, like she had about her savior's identity. Oh well. Who cares? I don't give a flying fuck because the mark's gone, she declared in a sing-song tone as she skipped in a circle around the room. The other 3 occupants in the office suite dropped. Naruto then leaned toward the old man to whisper. Oi, Hokage Gigi. You sure I didn't do something else to her when I broke the seal? Maybe I damaged her brain or something. I heard that. A few minutes later after Anko dropped her mission scroll off, she left with Yugao to celebrate her promotion with lots of dango. But not before promising Naruto she would see him again soon to discuss how he rescued her in detail, among other things. The blonde then was asked to stay behind. So what else is there to talk about? He quizzed, and got a shiver down his spine when the third's lips formed into a knowing smile. While I really am happy that you freed Anko-chan from her suffering, I still believe you've been a bit too reckless about removing the cursed seal. Kurama, realizing something was off in the Hokage's office, tried to speak up, Naruto but her host seemed oblivious to the voice in his head at this moment. I don't see anyone else being successful at taking it off her. He crossed his arms and narrowed his eyes defiantly. Be that as it may be, I believe Jiraiya-kun has taught you to approach every seal with delicacy. Naruto, he even tried to relate it to making love to a woman, too. Though I didn't understand what that damn pervert even said at that time. Naruto retorted with a chuckle, still not really hearing the fox's increasingly alarmed voice. Would you think he'd be pleased with how you took care of this situation? The Hokage quizzed with a knowing smirk. Naruto let out a snort. Oi. Hell no. He'd kick my ass into next week. But he doesn't have to know that, does he? He nervously said as he hoped the Hokage would drop this. Oi. What? Naruto seemed to have finally realized Kurama was speaking to him. There's someone behind you, dumbass. He felt his insides go ice cold as the third glanced up behind the boy. Well, Naruto-kun said that. How do you intend to respond, Jiraiya-kun? He whirled around to see the large white-haired man looming over him. The Toad Sage's presence felt like it was more overpowering than even the Kyuubi's at that moment as he glared hotly down at the shrinking blonde boy. His lips, thin with anger, slowly moved upward into a nasty smile. Well, my little godson has been a naughty little boy while I was gone. I think I will have to teach you a lesson. He rumbled as he continued to stare down at the Jinchuriki. Okay, that guy scares the shit out of me right now. I'm going to sign off for a while and hope you survive. Farewell. Why did I just have a feeling of deja vu right now? Naruto thought offhandedly before he, in an increasingly rare moment of stupidity as of late, decided to stand up to his very powerful godfather. Well, how are you going to do that, Ero Sennin? He challenged with a nervous but brave look. Jiraiya chuckled evilly as he raised a hand, holding something in it. It was a long stick that looked oddly familiar to the blonde. Naruto stepped back in shock when realization struck him. My Nad's crusher. How'd you get it? He exclaimed tremblingly as he took another step back when Jiraiya raised the stick threateningly. Doesn't matter. Stay and take your punishment like a man, Gaki, the sage shouted before sprinting toward the boy. That'll keep me from becoming a man. Naruto yelled as he jumped over Jiraiya's lunge and dashed for the open window. The blonde thought he got free as he jumped outside when he heard a loud voice. Kuchio's summoning. Jiraiya's voice shouted before a pop was heard. In the next instant, Naruto was stopped mid-air outside the window as a long and slimy red tongue wrapped itself around his torso and pulled the screaming boy back into the office. In the next moment, the Hokage calmly stepped up to the window to close it to contain what was sure to be a lot of shrill screaming for the next hour in the office. Next morning near the main gate, "Fuck you to hell." Naruto cursed out the tall white-haired man next to him for the 20th time that morning as he tried to shake off a limp due to the lingering pain in his groin. Jiraiya merely grinned. "I'll get you for this." The blonde vowed darkly just as the two arrived at the main gate. They were surprised to see someone waiting there this early in the morning. Mitarashi Anko was standing still with a travel bag at her feet, as if she was awaiting someone to meet her. What stunned the men was her new wardrobe. She was wearing a full-body mesh armor that went down to her thighs with a skin-tight flesh-colored shirt underneath that gave off the illusion she was topless. A burnt orange miniskirt even skimpier than her old black one barely covered the rest of her modesty, but if she so much as lifted a leg a little too high, a lot of men in close proximity were going to automatically crane their necks with a snap hoping to see what she was hiding underneath. To finish off the ensemble, she put on a pair of shin guards along with a new pair of open-toed ninja sandals, instead of her old combat boots, and topped the outfit off with a tan knee-length trench coat left open to give an enticing view of her topless upper body. The only things that remained the same was her snake fang necklace, fanned ponytail, and her hitai in its usual place on her forehead, almost hidden by her long bangs. To say her new outfit didn't leave much to imagination would be very accurate, as evidenced by a nosebleed coming out of Jiraiya's nose as he stared openly at the woman. Even Naruto was sporting a blush. Anko finally saw the two men and smiled brightly before moving in front of them. "Hello. Junin Mitarashi Anko reporting for duty as your escort this summer. Now I know why you're so strong for your age, Gaki. You got one of the freakin' Sannin training you," she declared cheerfully before becoming confused by the men's silence. She noticed them staring at her in stunned disbelief. "What's wrong, boys? Oh, you like my new Junin outfit? I admit it might be too saucy for you boys." Anko slowly spoke the last four words seductively as she exaggeratedly strutted her body in front of the men. At this point, both men snapped out of their trace and shook their heads at the same time. They then slapped the air as if doing a Tsukuyomi. "No, no. We're wondering what the hell you're doing here." They deadpanned at the same time in perfect harmony, though they were still sporting blushes from seeing Anko like this. This caused her to slump over dejectedly. "The old man didn't tell you. I volunteered myself and he gave me permission to go with you." She grumbled as she took out a scroll to toss to Jiraiya, who caught it easily in one hand. "She's right. Well, welcome aboard, Anko-san." He greeted after taking a moment to read the scroll and tossed it back. Naruto felt some apprehension at letting this woman come along on the trip, considering the sensitive nature of his training and, as far as he knew, she didn't know anything about his Jinchuriki status as of yesterday. On the other hand, he felt like he could trust her with his secret, considering she experienced something similar to his life. The Hokage also apparently trusted her well enough to allow her to tag along on this trip. In addition, she just became a Junin and she was going to know his secret eventually. What better way to learn that than straight from the source? "Alright, you two. Let's get going. We're taking a detour before we go to the training ground." Jiraiya's deep voice snapped Naruto out of his thought. His expression suddenly became dark at the mention of the new destination. Anko noticed this before she slapped Naruto on his shoulder somewhat hard. "Gaki, what's wrong? You don't look too happy." Her slightly tactless attitude annoyed Jiraiya as he wanted to protect his godson from further pain of having to dwell on this issue any more than needed. He was about to admonish the woman when Naruto put his hand up for reassurance. "It's okay, Ero Sennin. I trust her enough. We're going to where my parents died. I hope this chapter is well received by y'all." Next chapter, we'll see some more training and some Anko and Naruto moments. Thanks for listening. I hope you guys liked it. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like for more what ifs and support the author. See you guys in the next video.